Yeah, we've got a brand new show starting on the station on DougieStoneRadio.com. Hit the play button on there. Or if you've got an Alexa, say, Alexa, open internet radio. We're on TuneIn Radio. And you can download our apps from your smartphone of choices. App Store. So the Google Play Store or the App Store, go search DUGGYSTONE Radio. You'll find us. So this new show that's coming to the station is called The Road Show with Jack Mortimier. So what we're doing at the minute, we're interweaving it into the business show whilst we make it into a full-blown show. There's going to be some very serious segments, and there's also, like this one, it's a great example of cars you love to hate. So if you like this, go over to DougieStoneRadio.com or go over to the Facebook page, which is called The Roadshow Dougie Stone Radio. Give it a like. You'll get all the shows that's coming on there, all the replays on Mixcloud, wherever they are, and hook up with Jack because it's going to be brilliant. But we had a lot of fun making this show. So sit back, relax, enjoy this, and tell all the car nuts to search that Facebook page. That's The Roadshow Dougie Stone Radio on Facebook. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy this. It's bonkers.
Oh.
Jack.
Hello?
What's this?
I don't even know anymore.
Shuttleworth with Austin Ambassador Y-Reg.
Right, so we're talking today about cars that you hate, aren't we?
We are indeed. Cars that everyone loves to hate, and goodness me, there are many.
Did this go on a chart?
I don't know. I know that this is John Shuttleworth, if you didn't know, is a character that someone used to play, and I know that he did have a sort of, it was like a mockumentary about him going on tour. I think it was called 500 Bus Stops. It was back in the 90s.
Okay. And I didn't know, and you just taught me something. He's Jilty John from Jilty John, isn't he?
Would you believe it?
I know, that's a great...
It's amazing.
Your Mitsubishi Shogun, but I'll always dote on my Austin Ambassador. Y-Reg, Y-Reg, Y-Reg. Don't keep asking me why, Reg, it just happens to be that year.
That's enough of that crap.
I think that is. What are we doing?
I don't know, so what's the subject today, Jack? So
Today's
for our
subject
listeners.
on the road show, yes, it is still the road show. I don't know if you think that we've hijacked or something here on Dougie Stone Radio. Today we are talking about cars that you love to hate.
Oh,
I know, and I've been putting messages out and talking to various people on the group chat on Facebook. Join that if you haven't already. And on the Instagram page. And I have got quite a few cars to talk about today.
right, okay. So what's the list for today? What cars are we going through so people know what
Okay,
to get ready
fine.
for it so they can cringe?
Prepare yourself for the likes of Skoda, but like old Skoda. So we're talking the Skoda Estelle, the one with the engine at the back. We've got the Yugo.
Yugo.
Do you remember the Yugo?
I do remember the Yugo.
We've got the Austin Allegro.
Yeah.
From America, the Ford Pinto.
All right.
We've got the Austin Princess, which I'm really looking forward to going through that
Yeah.
one because it turns out that Kirk's dad had one of those.
Yeah. We used to drive one of them.
A bit of a modern twist here. We've got the Nissan Juke, which is a car which is still in production.
Yes.
We've got, this one is a very, very controversial one, and as soon as I uploaded it, I did get people asking who on earth has put this in there. But the Citroen BX.
Yeah, it was crap.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
crap.
We're going on to that.
And because that had air suspension as well.
That
But go
did,
on.
yeah.
Go on.
We've got the Renault Megane Mark II, which I can see where they're coming from there, which is that one, which like the early 2000s one.
Yeah.
We've got the Lada from Russia, and to round things off, we've got the Reliant Robin.
Oh, my dad used to have one of them as well.
Seriously? Yeah. What is it with your dad?
Dad's shite cars.
Oh, no. Shall we get started?
Yeah.
All right, then.
I'm still thinking about that song. It's still in my head. It's going to be in the head all day. This song is going to be in the head all day.
Even say no to a Rolls with the chauffeur, a brand new Toyota, a Skoda. Give over. Because
I think I'm going to get right behind John Shuttleworth. We need to get him making famous. Right. Oh, this is a serious show, this, you know.
We're giving you consumer advice on automobiles and which ones evidently to avoid, including the Austin Ambassador, specifically if it's on a wire edge.
Yeah, wire edge, absolutely wire edge. So go on, the first car then.
So the first car that we're talking about is the Skoda, but the old Skoda. Now, when I went around and I was telling people, specifically for this one, teachers, about cars that they love to hate, they pretty much all started with saying Skoda. Because from their childhood,
yes.
If you remember back in the day, which I don't because I wasn't there, if you remember, Skodas were terrible.
Yeah, they were. They were
They
terrible.
had their engines in the back, and the design from them actually came from Renault from the 1950s, which wasn't particularly great anyway. So they kept on churning these things out. They were called the Skoda Estelle, which is an amazing name. But the thing was that every time that the teacher said, "Oh, yeah, Skoda, they're terrible cars," the students would always reply, "What are you on about? Skoda's fantastic. Skoda's fine." Because now, of course, Skoda's owned by Volkswagen, which I think they were snapped up by Volkswagen just after the Cold War, once Czechoslovakia became the Czech Republic and they all became capitalist. And really, now they make some pretty good cars.
Yeah, they do, yeah, and they're not cheap either. And
they're not.
The quality, what they tend to do, and this is with the thing with car companies, because a lot of car companies are owned by bigger car companies, aren't they?
Right,
and they have the sports cars and everything. The technology trickles down. So the great thing about the Skoda, it's the trickle down effect of the Volkswagen. So you'll have panels and lights and. If you look at Skoda, some of the Skodas, you'll have similarities to the older Volkswagen.
Oh, definitely,
So you know that anyway.
Well, they are
just in case the listeners don't know.
Definitely, yeah, certainly. And I mean, they really are budget, and I use that term lightly, Volkswagens.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Skoda out of the way. Done.
That is, yes, done and dusted. Now we are going from Czechoslovakia to Yugoslavia for our next car, which is the Yugo. Yugo, but the car does not.
Yeah.
Now, the Yugo is a car which is hated pretty much everywhere, as far as I've seen, especially because they actually sold these things, unlike most of these sort of Eastern European terrible cars, in America.
Yeah.
Which is where it sort of... It did actually gain quite a bit of popularity there because it was one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest car you could buy. It was about $39.90 and that $3,990. I can't remember what the price was over here in the UK, but it was very cheap. And can we just say that was for a reason when you compare it to hatchbacks of the era, which is something that you can't really do, because if you compare it to something like the Austin Metro or the Peugeot 205 or the Renault 5 or that sort of thing, I'm afraid it just couldn't compete. The design for it was it was an old Fiat design. It was the Fiat 127, which would have been okay, but the problem with that was that they started building the Yugo, at least the Yugo 45 or the GV, which stood for Great Value. Seriously, that's what it was called in America. It's called the Yugo GV, Great Value.
Great Value. You get one. You bet you got one free with every truck you bought. You know what I mean?
That's right. You can carry
every
it in the
Chevy,
back.
Every Chevy you bought, you got one of them. You can get it in the back.
You can carry it in the back.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you can tow it around with you.
Beautiful. Anyway, it came out, the Yugo GV, in 1980. But that's fine. But the problem was that the Fiat 127 first came out in 1971. So they were engineering what was already a 9-year-old car, which was, by that point, quite dated. And they actually only stopped building the Yugo in its former Yugoslavian market in 2008. When the company went bust. Seriously.
Do you know why? Because of a great value.
Exactly. There you go. And I suppose it would be even better value.
Right.
All right, then. So on to the next car. And we've been poking fun at the Eastern European former communist countries. But sadly, we've got to, temporarily at least, draw that to a close. Because we've got a very British car, which tried to take on all of Europe. And... kind of also failed miserably. It was the Austin Allegro.
The Allegro's got room. You know,
that ad. That was the ad. Oh, exciting times. And I suppose it did. The thing about the Allegro was that it really, really, really tried to be an innovative car. It tried to compete with stuff like the Citroën GS. So they fitted air suspension to it, which was a bit like Citroën's, only worse, I think it would be the correct term. And they fitted also engines that were quite dated at the time. They were certainly dating back to the 1950s, which meant that the car had to be much higher, and it just sort of looked awkward. And the icing on the cake for the Allegro was its square steering wheel.
I know, my own club on them.
Seriously, with the square steering wheel, because they did eventually remove it. Because
it did.
But the problem with the Allegro was also there were some other problems when they first launched the Allegro, and one of them was that if you were to jack it up on its mounting points, it would have a tendency for the rear window to actually fall out. Seriously. That was an actual problem that the Allegro had, and also on a particularly rainy day, apparently, which of course we don't have ever in Britain, just to fill you in if you're from Australia, the boot lid on a rainy day would just let the water in. There was just no waterproofing whatsoever there.
Crazy.
It was
crazy. Well, anyway, just while you're talking about that, let's have let's just try this.
1970s Austin Allegro commercial.
Voici une Austin.
Oh, we're in French.
Nous allons voir combien de personnes
Oh yeah,
tiennent
there you go.
dans
That's
cette
the wrong one, then, isn't it, Jack?
I think that
Do you know what I mean? This is proper production, isn't it?
This is.
So even in France, it's trying to do
Voici
it.
la
Look.
Yeah, there you go.
Austin Allegro.
Well, it's room, you see, so it's good for radio. This, but there's how many people have just got that car?
Too many. What's this? As if it's just, this is the equivalent. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening here is we're seeing a very, very, very large quantity of people getting out of an Austin Allegro in ways in which, if they were to be driving along, would be heroically unsafe. Which I suppose in the 1970s you could do. I mean, it wasn't like there were any seatbelt laws.
Oh, that's great. That definitely the wrong ad.
That was.
I was looking for the.
I think that's that one there. Sorry.
Is it that?
I think it is this one.
one.
This is just the zenith of cheesiness from the 70s.
Allegro's got room. Lots of room. Room for lonely. Plenty of room for fun.
Allegro's got room.
Allegro's got room.
Miles and miles of room. Change up to top. Allegro
Change
has
up to
room
top.
stay. Allegro has
Four gears, yeah. I think if you had the biggest engine, the 1700, or I think even it might have been on the 1500 as well, you did get a fifth gear. But if you had the 1100 or the 1300, no, you were stuck with four.
Yeah, 4 gears. It had lots of room, though. They said lots of room.
That's true, yeah. It's just a shame it wasn't a hatchback. I feel like if it was a hatchback, it would have done much better.
Yeah,
like it would have been able to compete with stuff like the Golf that was coming out of
yeah,
Germany.
might have done actually. Might have done. Yeah, might have done. So what's the next car then, Jack? We've
Next
done that
car,
one.
we're taking a bit of an excursion over to America for this one.
Yeah, for our American listeners.
For our American listeners, if you were around in the 1970s, you may well remember the Ford Pinto. Now, the Ford Pinto was Ford's answer to... It was essentially what we would... It was a sort of Ford Escort-sized car over in Europe. And this was America's answer to it. The only problem that the Ford Pinto had two problems at launch. The very first one was that... And I think it was about 2 months after the car entered production, it had to be recalled because the accelerator pedal was getting stuck. So
that's not
essentially,
good, is it?
No, it's not a fly.
Not a thing you need,
it's not
is it,
a
that?
fly and start that. But it was only ever to get worse for the Pinto because what they realised was that the fuel tank was placed right at the back of the car. So essentially, the regulations said that the fuel tank wouldn't get ruptured from the front. It was only ever governed from the front.
Right.
And so what they thought was, now how we can get around this? We can just put it right at the back. But the only problem there was that if another car was to go into the back of a Ford Pinto, what essentially it would do is just leak fuel everywhere. And so if there was ever a fire, there would be just one great big explosion. This is the sound that came with the Ford Pinto. It was just huge speakers came as standard, so you could let people know that you were in the area. But I tell you what, that would really stop tailgating, wouldn't it? Just put on the back of it. This car leaks fuel and explodes if you crash into me.
They could have called it the atom bomb, couldn't they?
They could, yeah.
Right, that's brilliant.
Okay, back over to Britain now, and to the very tense moment here on the roadshow. This next car is the Austin Princess, a nice bit of luxury motoring from British Leyland.
Dad had one of them.
Exactly, and this is the problem that we faced here. That it turns out that Kirk's dad had a Austin Princess when Kirk were a lad.
Yeah, he did.
How was it?
It was. I don't know at the time for me, because obviously I was driving older cars. It was brilliant. You know what I mean? It had 2-litre engine. Front used to lift up when you used to accelerate.
Very powerful.
Yeah, I probably wasn't, but
no, that was how it felt as a kid, and I can completely understand that. I mean, whenever you get like a new car as a kid, you feel excited, don't you?
You do. And as an adult, but there you go.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So yeah, it's and it had. You had to go and take it to have the suspension.
That was it. I had hydrogas suspension, so you had to go get that pumped up. And occasionally, I have noticed if you want to buy one now, sometimes if you've got one which hasn't been looked after too well, you'll notice it's lopsided because the suspension they haven't recharged it recently and it's leaking.
But they were I think they were very wallowy because of that.
Yes, I can imagine so. I mean, I've seen Austin Princesses, but I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of being driven in one.
Oh, well, there you go.
This is something. Tell you what, listeners, if you're nearby, if you're near us over in the Midlands, or you're willing to travel in your Austin Princess, and you've got
That'd
one,
be good,
that would be so cool.
Yeah, all these. If any of these cars that Jack's mentioned on this glorious show about the cars you love to hate, if you've got one or know has got one, you've got to come and pick Jack up it, and he
Please,
can do it. He can go do
honestly, I would
I'll even
love
lend
to
you my
see.
GoPro, and you can go and do a video of it.
That would be so cool.
Brilliant. Okay.
That would be so cool. This one is actually a car which is quite likely that some people will have. And it's a car, once again, that's known all over the world. It's the Nissan Juke.
Yes.
A very modern car, but...
Ugly.
Yeah, there's the problem. It is ugly. It is. I mean, like, you've got these headlamps, if you've never seen a Nissan Juke. The headlamps are sort of mounted onto the bonnet, and it just sort of looks... I'm trying to put this in a way in which I don't say it looks awful, but it looks awful.
That's the best way to say it. If you don't want to say something, then just come out and say it.
Pretty much. And I mean, I have had people in retaliation say to me that the Nissan Juke's quite a fun car to drive.
Yeah, it might be, but it's bloody awful, isn't it?
I'm afraid it's not too good to look at. I do believe they are coming out soon with a new version of the Juke, which hopefully does look a bit better.
Yeah.
So hopefully Nissan's design team weren't drunk this time.
Yeah.
Now, the next car is one which did catch me off guard, I should say. And it was the Citroen BX.
Yeah.
Now, the Citroen BX, I'll give you a bit of information about this. The person that said this to me is a Dutch guy. He's on Instagram. He's called Plank Honda. If we can we name and shame? I don't have to name.
Of course you can. Yeah. We won't get it. We'll just died. Any complaints could go to Chris Evans at Virgin Radio.
That's right. Yes, we'll send them to him. He's a trustworthy man, and he'll get them to us, I'm sure. Essentially, he said that growing up, when you compare like family cars of the 1980s, you had stuff like the Ford Sierra, which looked really, really futuristic at the time.
They did.
And then you had this Citroen BX, which is a very, very boxy car. Once again, with air suspension, you could get it to rise up and then lower down and that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, you could do that, yeah.
But the thing that makes me laugh is, and I guess this is the beauty of retrospective, is that he owns one now. And he actually takes it to car shows and stuff, and he cherishes it. So I guess it shows the stuff that you thought was terrible when you were growing up isn't always so, or at least you grow to love it. And I think really, in some ways, you could say that about a lot of these cars because they are classics now. And if you go to classic car shows, you will see them.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the photos that I've put on the group chat are actually ones that I've taken from car shows.
Yeah, because when we get further down to the next couple of cars, the one after the next one is a car. I think it looks pretty smart. But anyway, what's the next car then?
All right, so the next car, once again, is another quite modern thing. And it's the Renault Megane Mark II. So it was the one from like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I never really saw this as a bad car, if I'm honest. However, I think this is sort of a trope of French cars in general, or the sort of what they tend to get is very bad electrics.
Yeah.
And they are a little bit rubbish in that sense. And the other thing about the Renault Megane Mark II that I love is that it was unnecessarily complicated. If you wanted to change the headlamp bulb on the car, you had to do something. I think you had to remove the wheel to get to it. It was not a great idea, really. I mean, I think it really... Something like that, because let's face it, that happens. And it's quite a frequent thing to change headlamps. Why would you not make it easier in any way than to just like...
So you have to take it to the garage.
They got you. Yes.
But on that, not casting aspersions, but have you ever driven in France? Have you ever seen them drive in France?
I have been to France, yes, and continental Europe. Let's just say that they don't really have the best drivers looking at their cars. I swear what they do over there is when they buy a new car, they go to the dealer, they pick up the car, and they take a hammer, and then they just whack the car, and then get the key, and then they just scrape it, so it's over and done with.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way.
You'll never see a car without any damage on it.
No, you're right. It's mad, isn't it?
It is. So what's the next car, Jack?
The next car, this is the one which Kirk saw a photo of on the group chat, and he thought, hey, that's a very smart-looking car.
I'd have this.
Yeah, it's a Lada, which was a car from the Soviet Union, and it started production in 1970. It was another Fiat-based car. This time it's the Fiat 124 from 1966 or so. And it was built for the Russian market, which meant much thicker steel to prevent rust. Seriously, it was just a very, very heavy car.
Right.
It had a rather agricultural, I think is the correct term, engine.
Right.
And they sold it over here as a sort of cheap entry-level car, sort of the same cost as a Mini.
But more room in it.
Much more room. And, I mean, this is the perfect example of a car which, over time, everyone used to hate the Lada, and everyone used to make jokes. One of the ones that my neighbour said to me was, what do you call a convertible Lada?
A skip.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And the reason that they put heated rear windows on the... Sorry.
Yeah, go on, I know that one as well.
To keep your hands warm while they push it.
Yeah, in the winter.
That's right, in the winter. Anyway, as you were saying...
No, that's fine. That's
No,
fine.
okay, that's fine.
I think I'd be tempted to have one of them.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's...
I bet they're not cheap now.
I bet you the collector's items, because I suppose they all got scrapped because we all thought they were
crap.
rubbish. Yeah, exactly. And our final car, another British one.
My dad had one of these.
And his dad had one of these. It was
Dad, you've had some crap cars.
Clearly. It is the Reliant Robin. Other Reliant-based three-wheeled vehicles are available, but mostly it's known as the Robin. This was the car that the police force called the Plastic Pig, if you didn't know, because it was built out of fiberglass, and it had one wheel at the front and two at the back, so you couldn't really call it a car and you couldn't really call it a motorcycle. It was a car-like vehicle.
Now you can actually drive that. I think this is why my dad had it. You could drive it on a motorcycle license.
That's right, yeah.
You didn't need a full car license, so that's why my dad had one of them.
That is actually a really cool idea, and I suppose that's why they kept building them, because they only stopped building them in 2001, which I think is quite amazing. But I mean, what a way to get over not having to do a driving test.
Well, it's mad, really, though, and that's why you can drive ride a trike with a motorcycle license. Eventually, it's essentially a car, but you can ride one without a helmet on.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's amazing, but the problem that the Reliant Robin has, and I'm sure if you've watched Top Gear, which is an inferior show to the road
Definitely
show, by the way.
crap. They're just playing at it.
They are just playing at it. How immature are they? They don't have such beautiful music as Austin Ambassador Y-Reg by John Shuttleworth. If you've ever watched Top Gear, they did an episode where Mr. Clarkson drove one, and one thing that you will notice because of its three-wheel design is it's not particularly stable if you want to go around a corner very, very quickly. What you will find is, I don't know, as someone who grew up as with the Reliant Robin, did you ever experience it toppling over, or did you just take corners really slowly?
No, never. I'd never driven one. I was always a passenger. But my neighbour used to have one next door.
Yeah?
And I think they actually used to do that with it, tip it over deliberately when they used to go to the pub.
I suppose it's a bit of fun. And there's the thing. Now all of these cars, which, and I mean a lot of them are old cars, aren't they? That we all used to think were terrible, or, well, yeah, I suppose we all did. They're cars that are loved now. You can go to a classic car show and you can see these cars and their owners will polish them and look after them, make them look like they've just came out of the showroom. And really, we've gotten to the stage now where cars like the Lada, the Yugo, the Reliant Robin, the Austin Allegro, they're classics.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Stranger things have happened. Seen people have got more money than sense, haven't they?
Clearly.
So, Jack, if people want to get involved in some of the stuff you're doing, what's the Facebook page they need to go to?
Well, they need to go to Dougie Stone Radio, The Road Show. If you add yourself to that group, you can always do that anytime, any place, anywhere. And if you're not on Facebook or you're on Instagram instead, then follow the Dougie Stone Roadshow on there. I believe it is called D Stone Roadshow, all one word. And we'll be keeping you informed about what's going on.
Great show, Jack.
Oh, brilliant.
I think we've got to end with this.
A very nice Morrissey towel for sale in the local paper. There's just one problem. It's an X-Reg. Yeah, and as you know, I'm used to driving a Y-Reg, an Austin Ambassador Y-Reg. Don't keep asking me Y-Reg, it just happens to be that year. I've got a Y-Reg.
It's a classy Jack, isn't it?
This is
going to take on, isn't it?
This is. We are going to relive. We are going to put life back into John Shuttleworth's Austin Ambassador Y-Reg.
We are. So anyway, thanks, Jack. It's been
Thank you ever so much for listening.
Great
and
show.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries, mate. Anyway, until next time, it's Jack's going now, and he'll be back with some more The Road Show on Dougie Stone Radio, won't you?
Yeah, I will do. So see you next time.
See you next time, people. Thank you. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that show. That song will be in your head all day. Go and check it out. We're going to relaunch his career. Anyway, go to the Facebook page, The Road Show, Dougie Stone Radio, to find us there. Everything on that page is just car-related. And if you want to share your cars that you love to hate, anything like that, do that there. And if you want to send us a message to the station, go send one to an email, contact@dougiestoneradio.com. That's an easy way to find us. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook, Dougie Stone Radio. That's the best place to start. Anyway, until next time, check out The Road Show on Dougie Stone Radio with Jack Mortimer. He's bloody brilliant, isn't he?